All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Course Creator Community Podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and I am super excited because I've got a fellow Aussie with me this week from just across the river there at Parramatta. Good suburb, bad football team, but good suburb. It's Mr. Kan Huang from Social Wave. Kan, how are you?
I'm very good, Jono. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, thank you for coming on. Kan, I like to start all my podcasts off with a quote or mantra that inspires you or fires you up. Have you got one for us?
I do. I would say run the marathon, not the sprint when it comes to marketing.
Yes, I love that one. And I usually ask the guests to expand, but I think we're going to be talking our whole podcast on that topic there. So we'll get to it later. Just before we do, Kan, I've obviously done a bit of research on you. We've had a bit of a chat. For my listeners that maybe if they haven't come across you before, do you want to let them know a little bit about what it is you do and how that came about? If you want to spend 5 or 6 minutes letting us know that.
Yeah, totally. Look, I run a demand generation agency. So basically a full service marketing agency here in Sydney and in Parramatta. We basically help clients actually, do their brand strategy, their positioning, and ultimately help them grow their revenue. So I set up this agency about 18 months ago. Prior to that, I was doing about 10 to 12 years in corporate hotels. So very different in hospitality. And really just basically took a year off and went traveling and just really spent a lot of time learning about marketing on the go because I had to pay the bills somehow and pay the travels. So that's where a lot of my learnings came. And then, of course, COVID hit, had to come back. And really, I think the business was actually born out of when I was sitting in self-imposed quarantine when COVID first hit. And the agency's just kind of gone from, leaps and bounds. And now we service about, 50 plus businesses, a team of about 12. And really just focus on helping businesses really grow their leads, grow their revenue, and ultimately become a subject matter expertise.
Love it. 50 businesses, did you say?
50, yes.
And 12 staff?
12 staff.
Okay. So I'm guessing your revenue must be doing okay there, Kan. What sort of numbers
We're doing all right.
If you don't mind me asking.
No, I don't mind at all. We're doing 7 figures. We just clipped 7 figures. And look, a lot of that fast growth has come from just doing good work. I suppose, I'm sure you understand as well, and a lot of marketing people out there is you spend a lot of time building other people's houses and you don't spend enough time doing your own. And so only very recently decided that we really need to double down on our own marketing. But really just, a lot of that has been just referrals, word of mouth, people just getting great results and then passing on our details to others.
Yes. Well, doing those things, you must be doing something right. And you must know a thing or two about marketing for you to be generating that revenue, for you to have 50 clients and for them to keep coming back. You must obviously be helping them as well. So I'm excited to speak to you, Kan. Now, today we're going to be speaking essentially about your quote, right? Which was along the lines of building a brand or building a marathon is a business, not a sprint. I'm going to hand it over to you here, Kan, and start where you want to start and tell us your opinion there. I'll jump in if I see an opportunity, but I'm going to hand it over to you from here.
Sure. No, thank you. Look, I think I've got a very, contrarian way of seeing things. And I think part of that has been born out of, during that time when I went traveling and I was, helping out a few businesses here and there, particularly service-based businesses, which is an area that we focus on. We help a lot of B2B businesses, white collar guys like accountants, lawyers, coaches, consultants. And fundamentally, where I realized that there was a big gap in marketing advice and, marketing, training out there is that a lot of the advice given out there and a lot of the paid courses and training is very much focused on very transactional, low ticket, items or courses or sales, right? And so being able to say, run ads onto a landing page and then being able to, convert people or even with a lead magnet, that's well and good when you've got something that doesn't require too much friction and people can actually make a fairly quick decision. Now, when you're dealing with guys like we deal with who sell thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in their services and also their intellectual property, that becomes incredibly tough. It's not a very straightforward decision. And so where that contrarian...
I'm not opting in.
Yeah, you're not opting in?
And buying a $10,000, program off the landing page.
Definitely.
Not even off a phone call probably straight away,
Exactly. And look, we say like these sort of sales cycles, they go for a long time for some of them and up to 12 to 18 months for the really, high end top of the town. And so where I've been focusing much on is helping these businesses build their audience, develop their brand, their positioning, and essentially establish themselves as subject matter expertise. And so, to go back to the quote, which is to say, run the marathon, not the sprint, is that I'm seeing a real prevalence for, I suppose, short-sighted marketing behavior. And that is that people are measuring the success of their marketing campaigns based on, 30, 60, 90-day windows, as opposed to looking at it from a 12 to 24-month window. And what that means is, like, if someone like yourself building your podcast, if you built that from scratch and you had no pre-existing audience, if after 30 days you were measuring the success of your podcast based on that, you would more likely than not, most people would just throw it in the bin. They say, it doesn't work, I'll move on, right? And, I'm curious to know kind of how did your podcast go, initially when you first started it off?
Okay, well, that's a good question. So this is actually my second podcast, right? So this one was a lot easier for me to build because I knew all the tricks, Let's go back to the first podcast, Fitness Education Online. I didn't even check the stats for like 6 months, which was, it's good or bad, depending on how you look at it, right? The advantage, like the reason I didn't check was because I was scared. I was like, man, I'm going to check this and, no one's listening. So I don't want to check it. So I didn't check it for like 6 months or something. And then when I checked it, I was like, oh, people actually do listen to this, So that was all right. But I think the better example I could give along those lines is maybe my Facebook group and my Facebook groups. So let's say Fitness Education Online, that's actually the largest Facebook group in the world for fitness professionals, right? But it didn't start like that. It's not like the first 30 days I had, I had no one in there. I had a few people there and I didn't get an ROI straight away on it, It wasn't until I build some traction and build the brand there. So I think that's where I can understand where you're coming from there.
Oh, definitely. And I guess the core advice that I want people to take away from this is have patience with the way that you do marketing, right? Unless you have deep pockets, unless you're backed by someone with a big audience, I imagine most of the people listening to this they're really just starting from day one, from foundational, right? So it's really important to actually have, I suppose, the byproduct of, disappointment is expectations. And so it's super important to go have realistic expectations, understand what the real timelines are, because what you're seeing out there, particularly around like some of the ads and some of the promises that you get, is like, hey, silver bullet, if you did this course and applied this one strategy, you're going to be able to make $1 million. And unfortunately, that's not the case. And the amount of times when I was even traveling and recently coming back and spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on courses, I would argue that most of the time they don't yield the results they promise. And it's not just about that one strategy that gets you the results. It's that combination of things as well. And I know, guys like Alex Hormozy, he kind of preaches this sort of stuff, which is that, business is kind of a set of skills or a combination of skills. It's not just that one tactic that'll just yield you the results. And so I really just want to make sure. Yeah.
Can I jump in here for a second? I think there's some really good points that you touched on there, Ken. So here's a couple of things that I sort of see in that space. When you see when I see anyway, the testimonials and the promises and that on Facebook, like there may be someone that gets that result, right? But let's use myself as an example. I could do a YouTube course tomorrow, right? And I'd probably get awesome results from it because I've already got a database of 15,000 people that I could send out and be like, hey, watch this YouTube video. And then that will get the algorithm flowing and other people will see it. Then they'll comment on it. On top of that, I also know what I'm doing marketing wise. So I know how to do a bit of a pitch at the end of the video to get people onto my free thing. I know email marketing. So I know if they get onto my email list, I'm going to be able to, sell them later on. I know that I've got a product that already converts. So I know that if I just get them on my email list, I'm going to make those sales there. I also, on top of that, I run a B2B thing. I'm selling to people that are going to buy things to grow their business. So I could do that YouTube course and I could probably add $10,000 to my business, no dramas, by doing it because I've got all those other skills in place. If someone, and they would, the people advertising their course would probably use me as a testimonial. He's Jono. He did our YouTube course and he made an extra $10,000 from a month. That's fine. But just because Jono can do it doesn't mean that someone that's got no email lists, no sales experience, no proof of concept, isn't good on video. Like they're worlds apart, and even like, and also the B2B side of things, I can do it because I'm selling a course to personal trainers that want to grow their business. If you're selling violin lessons, is it, I'm not saying nothing against someone who's teaching violin lessons or whatever, but a lot of the time, if you're selling money, it's easier to make that sale there. So that's my take on it. What are your thoughts on that, Ken?
I agree. I think the most important thing about that is it's context. It's understanding that, right? Like you had all these other variables in place. It's not like everyone starts from the same starting gate. Everyone's starting at different stages of this race. And if you're just at the starting gates, you really need to understand is that you cannot just apply this one strategy and be able to get those results. Some people might get lucky, and some people might just have a real, like a starving crowd that they're really catering to, and they found that niche that they can solve that problem.
It could have been
100%. Like that happens.
It
Could have been a real arbitrage, right, in the market. But I would say the vast majority of it, from what I've seen, is that is not the case. And I think what's really important ultimately is that you need to build an audience that, just like you, with fitness education online, is that you spent years and years of building out that Facebook group, that community. You built the trust, you built the brand and the reputation in the market, that now you could just say, turn on the taps and go, I've got this new product, I've got this new thing, and people will buy at a snap of a finger. And that's because it's not because of the one tactic or the copy they used. It's all those years of just being able to deliver results. And, even looking at myself, it's been right now when people refer other people to my business for my services, it's that kind of pre-selling, it's that pre-nurturing by the time they get to you, that they're willing to kind of, I guess, pull the trigger. And now if you're selling something that's on a cheaper end of the scale, then potentially people are happy to make the decision, take the risk. They probably don't know you much, but there's enough social proof on your sales page for them to make that decision. But I would say if you're someone who's selling a little bit more on the upper end of town, you really got to work on building that audience. And I think the people I look to for this are the accidental influencers, like the YouTubers out there who have just built massive, 1 million subscribers plus. These are the sort of guys who had no intention of monetizing audiences, but eventually did monetize them because they just had no intention of selling them on that first interaction, that first transaction. So it's a lot of, I guess, giving value, a lot of the content that you create as well. Then, of course, building that audience over time and not actually taking too much initially. And it's just like, I guess the analogy I use is you don't ask for marriage on the first date, right? Like you have to do the dance, you got to go on dates and you got to get to know each other. It's the same thing when you build that relationship with your audience.
Okay, so say someone's listening to this, Kan. Where do they start? What's like, let's say they're like, oh man, I thought I was going to, do a course and make, $100,000 next month. Okay. That's not the case. Where do they start? What would you say is, and let's put in perspective a bit. Let's say they're a course creator. They're already an expert at what they do. They've already got a service-based business. Let's say they want to transition and start selling online courses. What do? They don't have an audience. They've got a handful of clients, maybe some ex-clients. What's number one? What do they got to do?
Yeah, I think it's actually understanding about, firstly, number one is, what is your position? What is it that you say stand for? What is it that your market needs to know about? What are the 3 levers I like to think about is pain points, frequently asked questions, and knowledge gaps. So those are the 3 starting points for you to come up with topics about what you want to talk about. And then once you know what you want to talk about, I like to push my clients towards starting with video. And the reason why is because video is, content is king, but I think video is queen, because you can actually repurpose video into many, many different things. You can turn it into a podcast. You can take a quote out of that video and turn it into a piece of graphics. You could do an Instagram story based on it. You could write an article about it, right? You could do it as a text post on LinkedIn if your audience is there. So there are so many ways, I guess, that you can turn one piece of original content, I call it pillar content, into micro content. And then, of course, the next step is understanding, where does your audience's attention live? Now, if you're a B2B business, that could potentially be LinkedIn. If you're a business that is a lot of people Googling and they're actually searching for a solution, then maybe search engines is your thing. Maybe your audience is on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. So you've got to look at all the opportunities there. Do you run ads, or do you do this organically? Are your audience in Slack groups and Facebook groups? And so once you get a really good obsession and understanding of your audience and where they're finding information, all it is just producing content on a consistent basis that maps to these audiences and publish it in the places that they consume that. It's as simple as that. And it's all about giving value, educating, and helping them with transformation, so that when you build goodwill and you build affinity, which is just having people seeing you in a good light, they will ultimately buy from you when you have time to actually productize and you want to actually monetize your audience and say, hey, I've heard you guys, I hear you out. I know this is an issue that you guys have, because you're probably sliding into people's DMs and you're having these conversations and comments and you're engaging the community. And that's when you go and monetize them. But to start off with, potentially just to say, like you mentioned, have no audience, no pre-existing brand or reputation, it is incredibly hard for people to trust you because they don't know you from a bar of soap. And so that's where I recommend people actually start, is just to map that out and actually build out that content plan.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that positioning. I love that content plan. I love those 3 pillars, which was the pain, the FAQ, and the knowledge gaps. I love, seeing where the audience hangs out. Any tips there, Kan? If someone's like, I don't know where my audience hangs out. I think they hang out on Instagram. Like, any tips on how we can, I guess, discover that?
I think definitely just start interacting communities, right? I think Facebook groups, just like you are, Jono, they're kind of where the hottest communities are at the moment. It's where everyone's interacting. I mean, I would argue that almost Facebook, the feed itself is dead, right? Like everything's happening in Facebook groups. So closed communities. It could be Slack groups. If your audience is on LinkedIn, like I said, I think it's a matter of actually starting out and posting out content. And as you start to get feedback, as people start to engage, you're doing DMs and you're interacting with these guys, start to ask them questions, learn about them, have an understanding of how they actually came to the conclusion of actually reaching out to you. And so it's really just about almost like not going for perfection. Like you don't want to like wait until you've got the perfect product or the perfect content plan before you go out and publish. Just go out and then start putting things out. I mean, I started out just, publishing text posts, not even videos. And I said, let's just get it out there, see how people react. And as people engage with me, I'm asking them, I'm sending them DMs going, what did you like about what I posted? What did you learn about it? And others come to me after that and they ask me, they said, look, do you do coaching or consulting? Can you help me out with my businesses? And then as you get feedback from them, you understand what else it is that they need. What are the pain points? And if you do this enough, if you talk to enough people, and you don't even need to talk to that many, you will see, I guess, consistent themes, consistent problems that they have. And then they'll tell you where they are going to search for this information. And it's just a matter of, again, mapping that sort of, I guess, content to where people are searching for.
Yes, love that. Here's my little strategy that I recommend for course creators. It'll be interesting to see how this stacks up, because I think it's a bit different market for yours, but I think the philosophies are the same behind it. So I agree with everything you said. What I'd recommend, I think there's a little step that a course creator can take, that it's not taking perfect action, but it's just getting a little bit of data there. And that's even something as simple as a Udemy course. Let's just say you're out there as a course creator and you're like, all right, cool. I think it's Instagram. You can go out cold on your own. What I'd recommend is even doing a Udemy course. It's $20 or something like that. It's going to give you more than what you would have known if you just went out on yourself. Gives you a little bit of guidance, and then it can be a bit of trial and error. It can be like, all right, cool. I'll do this for a couple months, and not saying you get an ROI at $20, you might get an ROI, but like, not saying you're going to, make $100,000 from spending a couple months on Instagram, but it'll at least give you an idea of like, yeah, I can see potential here. Let me go all out on Instagram and get a bit deeper in there. Or like, oh, I've spent a couple months here and like, it's okay, but it might not be the best platform for me. Okay, now let me try YouTube. Okay, now let me go that way there. What are your thoughts on that, Kan?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a matter of actually dabbling and trying different things. But I think it kind of goes
for
back
a few months, all that as well. Like, it's not like,
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
A couple weeks, and
yeah. I don't have that short-sighted nature about it. Again, it's like, if I just tried running ads, for example, and I did it for 2 weeks. Oh, Facebook, you just paint things with the same brush. Facebook ads don't work. Yep. There are so many. I think the devil's in the detail with everything. And with marketing, that's all it is. It's that one slight tweak, that slight change. You're one change away from it being a success. And so if you give up before that even happens, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. And the challenge with that is that people don't actually know when they're just on the precipice of something really great, right? Yeah. They give up just before something big's going to happen. And I always say, like, luck happens at things happen, or luck happens at the intersection of being at the right place at the right time. Yeah. So if you are not in it, and if you're not doing, then that is the surefire way of just ensuring that you just don't succeed, because you're not even firing the shot to begin with.
I love that. There's a quote I like. I can't remember it exactly, but it's something along the lines of, you get clearer by doing things. Let's just say, for example, let me think of an example. Let's use courses because it's an easy one, right? Let's just say, and let's use an Instagram course because we're on that same pathway there. It's kind of like, if you think you're going to use Instagram, but you're not sure, Yeah, you can just sit there and think about it for a month. And then at the end of the month, maybe you decide you do it or you don't, or you can just give it a crack. And look, one or two things are going to happen. Either you like it and it's great, or you didn't like it and you're not going to use it. That's just as good as well. Because at least you were able to tick it off the list and be like, you know what? I don't like Instagram. It's not for me. See you later. Bye. Now I've got clarity and I can move forward. Both of them are a good way, but the only way you've been able to move on is you've tried something, realized it didn't work, and then moved on. That's way better from just thinking about it. Your thoughts on that, Ken?
Oh, definitely. It's I think Gary Vee says that he's like, you can't read about the push-ups. You have to do the push-ups. I think you appreciate that because you're an ex-personal trainer.
I do.
But
Yep.
like to get the results, you got to do. You cannot read. And I think people spend a lot of time, I guess, pontificating, a lot of time just fetishizing the idea of just absorbing information, but not actually applying that knowledge into real life scenarios. And I think, by doing, that's where the real results came. And I'll be honest, I spent probably 5 or 6 years trying different businesses, or actually more accurately, reading about starting businesses, and honestly just didn't really deploy all that much. And it wasn't until I suppose, circumstantially the pandemic and having to basically didn't have an income, not knowing what to do, and had to make something happen. I was forced, I guess I cordoned myself into a way that I had to do, because otherwise it's, feast or famine. So I'm very fortunate that it paid off. But I think the point is that if people can understand that just doing is actually the most important part of actually trying out businesses and platforms and marketing, you will get a lot more data and insights than actually reading about, someone giving a particular advice. I mean, of course, by all means, because you have to start somewhere, but rather than moving on to the next course and then the next course and then the next piece of advice, read something, apply it, test it, see how it goes before moving on to the next one.
100%. I think that's good life advice, right? I'll go back to even my uni days. So when I was at uni, I studied exercise science, right? I was an okay student, wasn't amazing, but studied decently, and worked at Sizzler part-time. Do you have Sizzler? Do you have Sizzler in Parramatta?
I remember Sizzler. There's probably a couple of floating around still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where'd you grow up, Ken? Out of curiosity?
I grew up in Southwest, so I grew up in Chester Hill. So there was a Sizzler not far away near Warwick Farm. So
Villawood, I think it was. Was it Villawood?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carramar.
There. Carramar. That's it. Carramar it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was all right. But then I finished uni and I got a job in a gym. Like I felt like I just had to learn again, because it was kind of like I didn't know. Like I studied for 4 years, but I didn't know what I needed to focus on and what I didn't. So it's kind of like I'd be at uni, there'd be a lecture. I'm never going to come up with this. So I'm not even going to listen, And then I get in the real world. I'm like, man, I wish I listened back then. And then all the other stuff where I'm like, oh, this is important. I better listen to this. Again, in the real world, it's like, man, I'm never coming up with this thing again.
Right.
And the people that were most successful at uni were the ones that were studying at uni, but also had a job in a gym at the same time. Because you're doing both. You're doing the learning, but then you're implementing it as well. You're seeing what you need to focus on, and focusing on that. You actually know. It's not a guesswork. You know, and also it's doubling down, because you're learning it and then you're putting it in the action as well. So I think it works well in all aspects of life. Now, question here, Ken. Here's the devil's side to this thing, right? How do you know? It's kind of like if you're saying, all right, it's like, don't expect an immediate result. Do I just have to be broke for a year, for 2 years? Like, where do we say, all right, this isn't working. I got to move on. Any tips there? You get what I'm saying, right?
I totally get it. I get asked this all the time because I get clients asking me, what is the ROI? When do I know that this works?
Yeah.
And I always say, when you talk to your customers and your customer tells you that it works. And so I'll give you an example. When I first started marketing and started this agency, I was working with an accounting firm, and we were doing, we were building his audience, we were doing his branding, we were doing videos and all that sort of stuff. And here I was sitting there and I was looking at all his data, and I was like, look, yeah, he's getting some leads through, And, me being kind of a very, I guess, transparent person, I was like, I'm not sure if this guy has actually just had the wool pulling over his eyes and I'm just getting away with murder here. He's just paying me. I don't know if it's working. He probably doesn't know it's working. And it wasn't until I actually asked him, I said, how do you know this is actually working? And he kind of nonchalantly nodded his head and he said, it works. And I said, why? And he basically said, it's because I talk to the customers all day. I get on these calls with people. I'm interacting in the community, and people are saying this is helping and they need my help. And so fundamentally, I guess the thing is that if you are out there doing whatever it is in terms of your marketing strategy that you are trying out, and you are not getting feedback from your market, then it probably means that your messaging or the targeting is off, meaning that you are not hitting that pain point, you are not hitting that knowledge gap, you are not answering that frequently asked question when you create that content. So it's super important, I think, also, like we mentioned, is to have the patience and try this for a few months. But I think qualitative data is actually really, really important. I think too much people focus on the vanity metrics, the quantitative stuff, which is how many likes did I get? How many comments did I get? But they don't talk about what are the nuances, what are the, we talk about the details, what are people actually saying, and what are the themes across all of this that people need from me so that I can actually help them. And so you will, I guess it's kind of a little bit convoluted, but it's like, you will know when it works, because if as long as you're talking to your customers and you're getting really obsessed and you understand where they're coming from, you will have a pretty good idea if it's working or not.
Gotcha. Okay. What about, say, timelines, Can? Is it like, man, been doing this for 3 months and I haven't got any inquiries? Do I give up, or do I just pivot, or any tips there?
Yeah, I think that comes with a bit of experience as well. Like if you're just starting out, it can be very difficult to understand whether or not you are on the right track, and it can also be really tricky for you to go, right, do I just keep trying and then potentially not have it eventuate, or do I say, let's scrap it and move on to something else?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that boils down to also getting advice from other people who have actually been on your journey. There's, I think
that's a good point.
The biggest thing, the fastest thing that you can do to fast track your success is actually to go find someone who is where you want to get to, and then going to speak to them, and then getting their advice, and potentially do an audit, or even getting guys like me just to go, right, let's just sit for 15 minutes and just go, what have you done? What have you tried? And then tell you whether or not you're on the right track or not. That sort of diagnostic approach. If you are just blindly going in there and just trying and then not actually getting feedback from anyone, you could very easily, and I don't think there's a single answer to this, but I think the advice is that get a second opinion, get a third opinion, but get it from someone who knows what they're doing, who can actually very easily look under the hood and be able to tell you whether or not you are on the right track or not.
Love it. So many good bits of info there. That's the best answer I've ever heard for that, by the way, because there's a couple things. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. You got Tony Robbins in Parramatta as well? Does he go out there?
I'm not sure. I've been meaning to go to his events when he hosts them here, and everyone says great things, but I haven't had the chance to just yet. They're not too cheap.
Yeah, that's true. He does them at Homebush, actually, not too far from
Olympic Park,
from Parramatta. Yeah. So one of his favorite quotes is essentially something along the lines of that: if there's something you want to do, find someone that's spent, say, it's a bit different in the online marketing world, but to summarize, find someone that spent 10 years mastering your craft, right? They can probably teach you most of that in 10 weeks. All the stuff that they did well, they failed, not in that detail, obviously, but like someone who's like you said, someone that's where you want to be, they've spent years mastering it. They can just break it down so much simpler, so you don't need to make those mistakes. It's definitely the fastest way there. And yeah, you've hit it on the head, where it's kind of like, and there's a lot of resources as well, where it's like, and even free ones, even if it's like, all right, cool, let me watch this webinar, let me, watch this YouTube video, listen to this podcast, get a free 15-minute consult with this person, whatever it is. Like you should be able to tell, where it's kind of like, all right, every single person is telling me whatever. I need to have a niche that's big enough and interested and know that I feel like I've got all these things here. What's that one thing that's missing? Then you can go and solve it. But it's kind of like, if you're trying to go this way here and everyone else is saying that there, I'm not saying it's not going to work. Maybe it will, but it's a bit more unpredictable. That's the way I see that. Your take on that, Can?
I agree. And I think, people are probably thinking, right, I can't just tap Tony Robbins on the shoulder and get his advice, right? But I think it's what I've done in the past is how I fast track the growth of my marketing, my agency is look at it two ways. What's the domino that will knock over multiple dominoes? Instead of fixating on just the little bits and pieces, right? What is the one thing? And for me, that's going out there and finding a business coach who has a big audience. He's got a very prolific podcast. It's James Schramko from Superfast Business.
Oh, yes. I've read his book. He's Australian as well, right?
He's Aussie. Yeah, exactly right. And for me, that was the big one. That was like, once I partnered with him, he and I we have basically a revenue share model, and he promotes my business. So he opens up doors. He can get me access to people that I would never dream of getting access to. He's kind of an affiliate marketer in a lot of ways for me as well. And so find these sort of people who are within your realms and your radius that you can actually have conversations with. But I think the second part of that is also to go, right, because you can't talk to guys like, your Tony Robbins or your Gary V's, look for kind of, I guess, the B or C grade influencers, so to speak. It's like, instead of going for the Kardashians, go for the micro influencer who's got like 10,000 followers, who are still doing that, because these are the guys who are still accessible, that you can slide into their DMs and you can actually talk to them, and they'd be happy to, whether you pay them or even on a free, I don't know, coffee. Not that I know many people who still want to do that, a coffee date. But look, the point is that these guys are going to be much more easy to talk to and still be able to, give you that advice.
There's what I like of that as well is it might just be the next step, right? So let's say, for example, I remember the first business coach I ever hired, right? Wasn't a great business coach. Was okay. What didn't completely suck, but it was just like, looking back at it, I'm like, man, it wasn't a great. Let me put this. It was just okay, right? It was okay, but it was it was $100 a week for 10 weeks, $1,000 program, pretty sort of reasonable price. It's like, if you want to pay a business coach for one-on-one business coaching, like, you're not going to. And this is going back 10 years ago, but still, it was still kind of like fair, where it was like, okay, I get it. Even with that, I got enough info to get an ROI to start with, but also just to take me to the next stage, where it's like, okay, great. I'm never going to sign up with this business coach again, but he's got me to a point. And now I've got a bit more money and I've got a bit more knowledge. Now I can move. Now he might have been an F stage, right? Now I can move up to the E stage. Then I'll work with an E person. Now I can go with the D stage. Now I can go with the C stage. That's what I prefer to do, because sometimes, and let's say, for example, last expensive mastermind I signed up for. Do you know Dale Beaumont? Do you know who he is?
I do.
Yeah, cool.
Yes,
so I signed up for Dale Beaumont's program, right? Great for me. $20,000, but was great for me because I've got all these other things in place, right? If someone's a beginner, I don't know if I'd recommend it, just because they'd still get some good info, but I don't know if they'd get a huge ROI originally, because there's just so much and a lot of it's up here, right? It would be better for someone to like that, do $1,000 business coaching. It's not, and it's weird because it's like, in a way, it's not going to be as good as Dale Beaumont's, right? But it may actually be better for that specific person to do that lower end one, get a bit more easy wins, maybe get a bit more one-on-one support as well, because Dale Beaumont's is, it's hundreds of people in there, you do masterminds and whatever. So that's the way I look at it. Don't, just because someone is the best at what they do, it's not necessarily the best move for you right now if you're starting off. What's your take on that, Kan?
I agree. I think different stages of your business requires different things, right? So if you're someone going from zero to your first 10,000 for the month, that you're going to require very different things to someone who wants to go from, let's say, $700,000 per month to $1 million per month. And so it's actually the awareness and the ability to discern what you require at different stages and who can help you take it to that next stage. Now, for us, that is very much so the case of, now having a business coach who has a big audience, who can open up the doors, and I'm going on this kind of more PR circuit and going out there and speaking. And I think that's where fundamentally the most important part is that I didn't need that when I first started. I mean, it would have been really handy, but for me to go tap, say, James on the shoulder and go, hey, I'm making $0 at the moment. Are you willing to take me on? He's going to tell me to piss off. And I think that's really crucial to understand like what available options are out there for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what I like to do there with my business is even just write it down, right? I've got my business written down. Okay, here's what I do marketing. Here's what I do sales. Here's what I do delivery. Here's what I do admin. And then I can look at it from an overview, from the bird's eye, and be like, you know what? My issue is I'm not getting enough leads come in. Okay, that's the person I need to work with. Who's the best at lead generation? And then I'll even go a bit deeper. Okay, well, what kind of lead generation do I want to do? Do I want to do paid? Do I want to do organic? Do I want to do YouTube? Do I want to do Google? Whatever it may be. And then I'll find that person. Okay, right. I know for me, it's SEO. I've just got no one finding me on Google, all right. Let me go and find an SEO agency, and that's who I'm going to pay there. Okay, great. Now I'm getting some traffic, I'm getting a lot of traffic, Now what's my next issue? Why aren't I converting this traffic? All right, cool. Let me go and speak to a website expert. Who's the best person at websites that convert? Okay, let me go and speak to that. Right now I'm getting a whole heap of leads, but I'm not buying. What's the next step? Okay, let me go and, get an email expert or a phone call expert or whatever it may be, and then it's like, all right, now I'm getting all these sales, but I'm getting refunds and complaints or whatever it may be. Okay, what can I do to make my product better? Let me go on and work there. If you look at it there, it can be like, all right, here's a specific area I need help in. Let me go and find that person and go deep in there. And then sometimes it is just general. Sometimes it's like, I don't know. I need someone, a business coach, to look at my whole business and then tell me where to go there as well. So that's my take. Anything to add there, Kan?
No, I think you covered most of it. I think the most important bit is, like I said, it's just that awareness, understanding exactly what it is you need at what time. The better you understand that, the better it is. And I think, to kind of, I guess, put a bow on everything, it's more about the longer you stay in the game, the better you become. Like you will go through, and like, to not sugarcoat things, you will go through feast and famine in business. That is the nature of business. It's not always up. We've had our tough times. We've only been around for 18 months, but I could think back to this same time last year, that last quarter of the year, and nothing was working out for us. A lot of it was just like, we were getting people inquiring about our services. No one was going ahead. And I had this real perpetual fear that I was like, look, our client's going to leave me. I'm not going to have any new leads coming in. I'm not going to have any new business. And it was like super challenging. But then, what I ended up doing was reach out to a bit more experienced business owners who told me, they said, this is a normal thing. Things will get better. If you stay the course, you'll be fine. And lo and behold, at the start of this year, things went gangbusters and things went, really, really well for us. And so if you were to just give up, let's say if I just went, I'm folding the agency at the end of the year and just said, I'm not doing this anymore, I would have missed the boat come January of the following year, where I had our record month and it was just incredible. It was amazing. And so it's really about just going, right, how can you actually build a runway that is long enough for you to be able to do that? Because the toughest thing I believe in business is actually just to get started and to get that first year under your belt. If you can get that first year in and you get some cash coming in and you're just like even breaking even, that is fantastic, because it allows you to run. Like if you're doing a course and you want to run this business, it will allow you to run your business in perpetuity as long as all things can stay pretty consistent. And then it's just a marketing or acquisition game. How do you get more people in? How do you avoid churn? How do you ensure that you are growing revenue wise so that you can reinvest that money back in and to grow it? And then depending on what your objective is at the end, do you want to run, say, like a lifestyle business where you only work 10 hours a week? Or do you want to run this, huge business where you got like, lots and lots of staff? Whatever that goal is, then you can take it to the next level. And then, like we mentioned, go and seek out people who can help you take that to the next level. You definitely cannot do it yourself. You have to sit on the shoulders of giants.
Yes, so much good info there. I'll summarize my take and then we'll do a bit of a wrap. So the way I look at that, another one of my favorite quotes is, it's hard to beat a person that doesn't give up, right? And I see that all the time. Like I see it with sort of my network and that as well. Whenever there's someone that just keeps trying, they'll try something, it doesn't work. Then they'll try the next. And when I say trying, I don't mean a complete business pivot. I mean, like, you've got your business and you try and promote it one day, or 1 week or 1 month or whatever, doesn't quite work. They still promote that thing, but a slightly different angle the next month, slightly different angle the next month. And even the upskilling. Whenever I see someone doing both of those things, they're constantly out there promoting, trying, and they're also upskilling as well. It's just a matter of time. There's only so many things that don't work, right? You can only
Process of elimination.
Yeah, even if you're the dumbest person out there, like, all right, you make the dumbest choices at the start, sooner or later you're going to get to the right one and it's going to hit. So I think that's a huge thing there. There's nothing I was going to add to that as well, but I can't remember it now. Yeah, I think that's a thing there. And it's, the longer you stay in,
Well,
and I think, sorry, you go.
Well, I was going to say, what I was going to add to that was really just to say that, all you need to look at is, I've dealt with a lot of business owners, some who are super intelligent people, and then some who are just completely oblivious. Let's be really frank here. And some of the most oblivious people are the most successful business owners.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the trait that I find that's consistent across all these guys is just plain grit, patience, and understanding that they don't have choice. They almost kind of self-confess. They're like, look, I'm not a smart guy. This is all I do. This is the one thing that I'm really, really good at. And that's all I do. I have a client who is he's a male hairdresser that he services people with dark hair, very, very specific.
Mm.
And he just, just started out cutting people's hair. And he's been doing this for like the last 10 years. And now he's just growing this massive hairdressing empire. And that's all he does. And I remember talking to him and I said, well, what do you do? What are the tactics? Like, I was trying to, I guess pick his brains. And he just said, I just been doing it for a long time and people know me now. And so it's like, there's no magic wand, I guess, a lot of the time. People just need to understand that by staying the course and being patient, and all you need to do, look at is like scientists. It's a process of elimination. Like one experiment fails, try the next one. Because like you said, eventually at some stage, you'll run out. There's only going to be a certain amount of options. And I've wasted a lot of money, a lot of time on different tactics and strategies. But now I know that one didn't work for me. I know I can always double down on this one. Here's the next one I want to try. And as long as you have, like I said, the runway to be able to do that, you will win. And so it's just really playing that marathon rather than that sprint and trying to find that silver bullet.
Love it. And I remembered what I was going to say as well. So let's use my fitness education online business. Been in business since 2014, right? And now, because cancer, there's a lot of ups and downs. I don't really have that many downs anymore, but because I got a big ass list, like I got a list of 15,000 people, like if I can't sell something to that every week, something's wrong, So even if my external stuff doesn't work, even if my Google ads drop a bit, my Facebook ads drop a bit, even if that stuff drops small term, because I've got such a big audience there, I've just got so much time where it's like, okay, keep selling to my warm people. Okay, we'll fiddle around here. Nothing's a drama. But the only reason I've been able to do that is because I've been in business since 2014, and also because I've played the audience game. There's even like, even starting off, and like, starting off, I think I made $10,000 a year in my first year, and maybe the next year it was maybe $30,000 a year, but then the next year it was like 100, and then 300, and then $1 million. So, it took a few years to get that traction going. But even and there's a couple messages here I think are important. I speak to a lot of, especially course creators at the start, that are kind of like, now I need this one thing to work because it's my last $1,000 or whatever. It's kind of like, you don't want to be in a position where you're spending your last $1,000 on this. Like if you're in that situation, get a job, build your bank account up a bit, build some savings, do it as a side thing. Same myself. Like, I had my fitness business. I was running it. It was great. And then on the side, let me build this online thing. Okay, cool. And then because you might need to lose some money at the start. It's kind of like, all right, I'm going to have to spend some money to get this up and going. So I've got to have this job to fund some of these things, pay some business people, pay some marketing. Great. So it's not a drama. If I didn't have that job and that other revenue, and I just said, right, I got no dollars and I just need to make this work. Maybe some people get motivated like that, but it's way harder, right? It's easier if you got some dollars in the bank there. They're my 2 points there. I think
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And I was going to say, I was adding to that, is that people probably look at business owners like you and I and really successful people, and they see us as like risk takers. I'm like the least risky, the most conservative dude. I don't know about you, Jono, but it's like I totally cap my downside as much as possible. Right. And to the point where the only reason why I suppose the agency is the way it is and how successful it is because I went traveling for a year and lived off, my very paltry consulting income of about $30,000 a year. But I could do that because I was like going around, Southeast Asia and, cheaper cost of living. I was bootstrapping my business, and I spent that, essentially that 1 year really just absorbing as much and learning as much as possible. And then deploying that, I guess, in the following year when I came back to Australia. And I think you mentioned about the side hustles and like building a side business. I think that's crucial. I think it's like you do want to do that. If you're hinging all of your bets on that last $1,000 and you don't have a job, you are in some serious trouble beyond just the business.
Yeah. 100%. And I'll just go one quick story here and then we'll finish up. Even from starting up, here's the way, and this is, it's a little bit off topic, but it still kind of makes sense here. Like when starting off in my business, my whole goal was build the list, right? And I had a partnership with another organization, Fitness Australia. They're like if you're a personal trainer in Australia, you're registered with Fitness Australia pretty much, right? And I can pay them for marketing. I can pay them, it's $500. They send out an email to their list, right? And the way I would market, the email I would send, what I would tell them to do is essentially get their audience to a landing page of mine. Right? It would be like, hey, you're interested in this course, go on into your details here and I'll send you over some info, right? Now, I know that I probably would have lost some sales from that because there might have been people that may have bought the course, but I got to enter my email. He's going to call me and email me. Nah, I'm not going to do that. I may have lost the odd sale there, but I'll settle for losing the odd sale because I know that I'm going to get a heap of people enter their details in there that aren't necessarily going to buy today, but are going to buy from me a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. So that's the way I look at it. That's how much I value my audience. Well, let's just put two things together there. Let's say I paid Fitness Australia $500. They sent out an email to their list. And let's say I didn't do the opt-in. It was just buy my course, And let's say I made, 3 sales as a result of that and got a 3 times ROI, right? I would prefer to make less money. I'd prefer to break even. Let's say I did the opt-in thing. I would prefer to break even and get an extra 100 people on my email where 100 people opt in. Okay, only one of them buys, 2 would have buy, whatever. I'll still take that, even though I'm making less money on the front end, because that's how much I value those 100 people there that I'm going to sell to later. And now I'm in the situation, the reason I got that audience of 15,000 and pretty much every personal trainer in Australia is pretty much just because I've used that exact same strategy every month for 8 years. And now, their list is essentially my list and I don't even need them anymore, right? But it's just from those things, building the audience and playing the long-term game.
Yeah, it's like saying, just because people don't buy from you now, it doesn't mean no forever. It's just not right now. So building the list is crucial because you're technically actually renting out your audience when you're on, say, Facebook, like even SEO, like on Google search cons, YouTube, social media, you're all renting audiences. If like Facebook, like they are now, just shutting, Facebook groups down and ad accounts down, you're in some serious trouble. So I definitely agree that building your audience, building your list that you can control, which is your email database, that is crucial.
I'll piggyback on that a couple of things as well. I've been banned from all of them. I've had my ad account banned, and it wasn't a drama because, okay, ad account's banned. And look, I'm not going to say it wasn't a drama. Like, it wasn't a good thing because now I need to, get it back or create a new one or whatever. But it wasn't a huge thing because, okay, I've got all these other things. I got my website, I got my email list, I got Instagram. It wasn't a huge thing. I've been blocked from Facebook before as well. That sucked too, but it didn't really affect my business because I could still run ads, I could still use my email. So because I had all these things going, these little things happened and they sucked, don't get me wrong, but like, it wasn't a huge thing. And then you got time. It's kind of like if your ad account gets banned and that's your only thing you're doing, you're gone. But if your ad account gets banned, then you got 10 other things going. It sucks, but it's just, and you've got, I think the key thing is the time as well, because it's like, it's half of it is the stress. If you're just running Facebook ads as your only thing, and then your account gets banned, not only do you need, like, there's the stress as well. It's like, oh, I got to get this back, and then you'll stress, then you'll make mistakes, then you make dumb things. But if your account gets banned, but you got all these other things, yeah, it sucks. Let me take a minute and think of the best way around this. Do I do a new one? Do I appeal? What do I say? Let me speak to some people, and then you can come back with a better thing. So I think that's huge. Ken, I want to be sensitive of your time. So there's just one question I like to finish up with, and that's in regards to mentors. You've spoke about a few mentors throughout this. I'm curious to hear who your biggest mentors have been. If you can answer it in 3 different ways. So one mentor is a paid mentor. So someone you've paid money to, like a James Franco or someone like that. Someone is an unpaid mentor. So you haven't paid, well, not a lot of money to them anyway. Might have paid a little bit, but ideally you haven't paid them. But they're the people you were, when you were studying, you were watching the YouTube videos, doing the webinars, listening to the podcasts, and then a book. One book that you recommend every course creator should read if they want to get better at marketing.
Sure. So paid mentor, I would definitely say James Franco. I was in his community for, I want to say, a year, super fast business, his membership, and just learned a lot from him. He's got a fantastic podcast. He's like almost 900 episodes. He's insane. Been doing it for a long, long time. But he's probably one of the best paid mentors. He's just been in the game for a long time. I think he came from the school of Dan Kennedy, kind of the godfather of marketing, and learned a lot of his stuff there. Unpaid mentor, I want to say, actually one of my really good friends who actually owns his own accounting firm, Davey Mack, Box Advisory Services. He's been someone who, we went to high school together, but I see him as a mentor, partly because he's the one that's kind of showed me the ropes in business. He started his business 2 to 3 years before I did. He went through all the trials and tribulations, and he shared a lot of that with me. So he's given me a lot of guidance. And he was one of the guys who I mentioned at the end of last year when I was feeling quite down about the business, that really told me, just stay the course, have patience, let that runway. So he's been great value. In terms of a book, gosh, there's a lot of books out there. You know what? I'm going to bring up my Kindle Cloud Reader, and then I can tell you one. I've been through a fair few. Let's see, what have we got here? I know I recently read Alex Hormozzi's $100 Million Offers. Amazing book. So I think that's fantastic for anyone who's looking to craft a really good validated offer as well. But I would say one of the main books that I really see as that everyone should read from a marketing perspective is actually Purple Cow by Seth Godin. I think it's just about understanding how do you differentiate yourself and play that sort of, I guess, red ocean versus blue ocean strategy, which is if you're competing against everyone else, you're gonna I guess fall into this what we call sea of sameness. But if you have a purple cow, you drive past and you see a purple cow, you're gonna be like, what the hell? Like, even though it's a purple cow, and you don't know what the point of a purple cow is. The point is that to create a business that's so different that people are just actually wanting to stop and actually understand what you do. And I think part of that importance of now where attention is, I guess, the currency of marketing, that you have to build something that is a purple cow to get people to actually pay attention to what you do. So that's what I would recommend for a book.
Yes, love that book myself. All right, Ken. So if someone's listening to this and they're like, all right, this guy is cool, I like his style, I want to work with him, or I just want to follow him on social, what do we do? Do we LinkedIn, Instagram, subscribe to your YouTube channel? What's the best way to contact you or follow you?
Yeah. I share a lot of my thoughts and some of the stuff we talked about on LinkedIn predominantly. So if you want to, you can check me out. Obviously, it's my name, Kan Huang. Follow me on LinkedIn. Of course, for anyone who is looking for help, I am just recently actually moving into more coaching and consulting as well. So if anyone who does want to, I guess, book in a time just to understand how I could help them, they just need to head on over to socialwave.com.au and you could directly actually book a time on my calendar by doing that. But yeah, that's basically where it is. Other than that, really just, I'm on a few other podcasts. I'm on a fair few of James's podcasts on Superfast Business. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about that, they can check out some of the episodes there as well.
Awesome. Just sent you a connection on LinkedIn then.
Excellent.
Beautiful. All right, Ken, that's all we've got time for today. Is there, to finish off with, is there anything I should have asked you but forgot to, or is there anything you want to finish us off with?
No, I think we covered a lot of that. I think just the key takeaways for everyone is really just to focus on having a good runway, stay in the course, basically don't give up, and always seek advice for people who have been there or gone through your journey. Because I think hearing it from people, they don't teach this stuff in university. They don't teach this in school. Entrepreneurship is tough. It's probably the toughest game. Sometimes I think we're a little bit crazy for going down this pathway. I'm sure you probably feel the same way. But definitely, I think that's the key. It's like, don't just, give up at the click of a finger. It's really important that you just, have that grit and determination, and things will come good for people.
Beautiful. All right, Ken, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Jono.